capital raising of the existing residential companies, the question is what should they raise it for? Because the product availability in Germany for the listed companies, from my point of view, is the big issue. Last year we had an exceptional year in Germany due to some, let's say, EU forced sales or some forced sales by banks that made it possible to really have large portfolios transacted on the market. And looking for this year, there might be one or two, at least one big portfolio will be on the market and will be sold during the year. But the question is, where will the product come from the companies can buy actually? So I don't believe in a lot of capital raising from the listed residential players just to acquire big portfolios, because simply the product of big portfolios won't be there. There might be a lot of talk about consolidation in the residential sector, in the listed sector. In Germany at least, they start to talk about getting decent market cap. Because if you look at the German residential players, they are still comparatively small in a European comparison when you look at market capitalization. So for international players, although Germany is a big market, residential, at least listed residential, is not that easy to get in if you just have the small capitalization of a lot of the stocks trading. So that might be one of the things I believe possibly there's some fantasy in the market that some kind of consolidation might hit the sector in the second half of the year. At the same time, residential is hot, and it will stay hot, because it's not only that the institutional investors are coming back, especially the German ones. They exited residential in the 80s and early 90s, and now they are returning because they figured out it's a stable cash flow. We have a decent rental market in Germany, so it's working. At the same time, you see a lot of initiatives all across Europe trying to establish rental sectors that also, residential rented sectors, like in the UK, like in Spain, you have some talks about, you have talks in Ireland, and you have seen all the first investments up there. So I think a lot of investors are starting to have residential on the radar screen again. And if you look at residential, in Europe, Germany is by far the biggest market where the people will go there. The other big markets is the Netherlands. I won't go there. France is a big market, that's right. The only question is the returns in France are miserable, especially if you look at the running yield. Then the Nordics remain interesting, but they are small markets. So German residential will be in the focus for the next 1-2 years. But after that, you have to be aware of what is the portfolio you're running, because then the exit side can be difficult.
And maybe just one comment to the resi, the residential part, we were thinking about going into resi and put it aside again, simply because if you look at the institutional investors in resi, I think 90% of them haven't committed the capital that they've collected. So why does the market need a union with another 2 billion, because we'd rack it up pretty quickly actually, to go into the market? To buy what exactly? It's not there. And then all the institutional investors aren't invested. So the product isn't enough to go around. And if the government proceeds to go on its very populistic way of discussing rent caps and stuff like that, it's going to be even less being built, because you can't build it under that circumstances. But even then, on the other hand, what you can do is you get your value back over your capital growth, because Germany hasn't grown, correct me if I'm wrong, between 88 and 98 or 2010, there was no growth scenario. And it's only picking up now. So it feels extremely uncomfortable with the German population. And if you live in Hamburg or Munich, you're looking at rents thinking, how's this going to work? Or purchase prices. But you have to enter that market now, and you're going to see that growth continue for quite a long time. But very specific again. Always, if you go into Germany, there's a watershed market. It's core, and it's resi, and there's non-core. And it's very difficult, very illiquid, very difficult to finance, very difficult to move along. But okay, again, boring on the leasing side. They perform on the leasing side. If you've got rents priced in somewhere around 8 to 12 euros, it'll always work. So the real downside isn't there, but the real growth upside isn't there either. It never was.